One might be strategy consulting. So that's kind of more when, let's say, an organization is coming to a strategy consulting firm looking to accomplish X, but they're not necessarily wanting that consulting firm to kind of be with them to solve the entire problem. They want that consulting company to come in and help discover a little bit more about what's going on in the organization and propose strategic solutions. But then they'll leave that strategy with the company or the client to then go and kind of digest and enact those actions on their own. So that's really common. For example, kind of in the big four of consulting, people might have heard of things, like Bain or Boston Consulting Group, so on and so forth. That's really common in those spaces where people are looking to just kind of get some ideas on how to solve a problem and then kind of roll things out on their own. On the flip side, we have implementation kinds of consulting, which is, maybe there's a consultancy that receives that strategy from a different group and then is the one responsible for actually implementing and carrying out the solutions that that group recommended. So that's kind of like strategy or the path to actually executing the strategy. And some consultancies do both, which is what kind of my experience has been throughout consulting. So you've kind of got strategy, implementation, or both, I'd say. And in terms of how a career in consulting progresses, I think pretty much all consultants start out as what we would call analysts or kind of junior consultants, and you're coming in, you're ready to be a sponge and absorb, and you're really just helping across different projects that teams might be working on with their respective clients. And you're just lending a hand in whatever really is needed. You might be kind of more on the technology side, you might be more on the business side, you might even be helping to, who knows, develop materials around maybe training or helping to put together some pieces of the strategy, all those kinds of things. And then from there, you start to lead those projects. You start to be involved in some of the kind of client relationship development, and you begin to move up kind of through the ranks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really helpful to break it down like that. Thank you. And it sounds like a very interesting career path for students on the call. Can you talk a little bit more about the skills they may need to be successful in consulting and what they should be looking out for as they're developing skills throughout their undergraduate years?
Absolutely. So I think with consulting, maybe even more so than kind of other career paths that folks might be interested in, a lot of the skills that are really most valuable in the consulting industry and most sought after are the soft skills. Consulting is so based on things like collaboration, communication, leadership, those types of things that are difficult to um, kind of quantify or address tangibly. But essentially, truly, day in, day out, everything in consulting is based on collaboration and communication, whether that's within a team or kind of within your own company. But a lot of the times it's with customers, it's with clients who really look to consultancies as experts in their specific areas. And for us, as we're thinking about kind of coming into the consulting industry from undergrad, we would want to think about how we work in teams, how we kind of present to different people, even when we're just, giving a presentation in a particular class and things like that. We want to work on those kinds of basic skills to be able to be ready to deliver that same type of skill in a consulting client facing kind of situation or case. When I talk about leadership as well, I think sometimes it is really nicely seen through, you might be a leader within a particular group or association within your kind of undergrad sphere. But at the same time, leadership is really just initiative, proactivity, the ability to kind of stay organized and put yourself out there and kind of be open to different opportunities and just be the one to, raise your hand and say, that you're willing to take something on. Even that is leadership kind of at those early stages of consulting. So, yeah, not even necessarily thinking of, you need to be the lead of this established group at Northwestern, but more so you as an individual need to be someone that's able to kind of take the reins, think group project mode. You need to be the ones to kind of take the reins and help steer the group to success and those kinds of things. I'd say in addition to those kinds of soft skills, analytical skills are always helpful. Things like data visualization, work in Excel and things like that, always helpful. Coming from a neuroscience major, I felt that actually my science background was really helpful because I remember being in one of my first interviews and they were kind of asking how I would address a problem. And I addressed it, but then as I reflected, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the scientific method. Like, why am I such a nerd? And so, kind of being able to take those analytical skills that we obviously establish in undergrad and being able to bring them forth is always going to be helpful. And yeah, if you've got experience, in again, kind of project management or kind of organization tools and things like that, that's always a bonus. But yeah, a couple of key skills there.
Yeah, that's great. That's really helpful. Some soft skills, some of those hard skills, if you will,
Yeah.
a combination of them all, which is great. And is there any other key information you think our students should know if they're interested in pursuing a career in consulting?
Yeah, I'd say there are a lot of different types of consulting, as I mentioned before. You could go into kind of management consulting, finance, technology, social impact, so many different options. I'd say that kind of as you explore opportunities with consulting, it'd be good always to do some research on those companies' websites and just see a little bit more about the firms that you might be looking into, say, at a career fair, or that you might be wanting to kind of chat with someone on. So, doing a little bit of background research is always a good tip, kind of going into those career focused moments in the year. Attending events at Northwestern and elsewhere. As I mentioned, I kind of stumbled into consulting by chance at a career fair in my senior year. And before my senior year, I truly had no idea what consulting was and had no sights set on consulting. I had a very different idea of what consulting was, and I was like, no, that's not for me. But yeah, just attending events that, the NCA puts on. So, for example, those career fairs, any info sessions that can be super helpful, resources to kind of help review and establish your resume, all of those resources, I'd really lean into those. Consultancies do have internships. Some more than others, but there is the possibility to look into internships with those companies. I know the company that I first joined out of undergrad, which is called Capgemini. Um, they're a large French technology consulting company. They have an undergrad program called Rise, and that's for folks who are kind of interested in consulting. You kind of do a short internship and consulting crash course, and then that can potentially, of course, help lead you into a position at the firm. So, a couple of things like that to be aware of. Yeah, and if you're really interested in consulting, I do recommend applying to a couple of firms. And just, yeah, being yourself in the interview process. I know consulting can be kind of a nerve-wracking space to be entering. It is kind of historically competitive, but I think that what sets people apart is just being genuine, being able to communicate, knowing why you're interested in consulting, and yeah, being kind of open to lots of different opportunities.
Yeah, that's all really helpful information and things for our students to consider. And I know you mentioned the interview process. Can you talk with us a little bit more about the case interview and what that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yep, going into kind of my first consulting interview, no idea what a case study was. And I was like, why are we doing this? What is happening? And all of my friends who were going into consulting were like, are you ready for the case? And I'm like, who is she? What is a case? So, yes, happy to talk about that. A case interview is a typical component of a consulting interview in which you're asked to essentially assess a hypothetical business problem and present your approach to solving it. So it could be something like, it presents kind of a background scenario about a fake company, and it would say, why are sales decreasing at X company? Or why are employees unhappy, and what can X company do to try to solve that? Or would you recommend X or Y action? Those kinds of things. Sometimes it's also a numerical case. Sometimes, I think mostly the big four are looking to understand your kind of quantitative analytical skills. So sometimes it might be around that, but a lot of times it's just a business scenario, hypothetical one, and you're asked to kind of show how you would approach the problem. So typically you're given 30 minutes or so to read over the scenario, kind of start to develop your thinking and compile your ideas, and then you're asked to present your logic and your potential solutions to the person that is interviewing you. And really, it's kind of as basic as that. I know there's a lot of kind of preparatory materials that are available around case studies. There's like case interviews for dummies, there's books, there's YouTube videos, which is how I studied for my case study interview. There's all sorts of things available. But yeah, essentially, they're just looking to see how you analyze a situation. Um, they might ask you to like draw a flow chart or kind of make a little visual, just pen and paper of how your thinking came together, those types of things. And oftentimes it's not even necessarily about a right answer, unless it's a numerical one. Mostly it's just trying to see how you arrive to an answer and have that indicate kind of your problem solving, critical thinking skills.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And thank you for breaking that down and hopefully helpful for students to demystify that a little bit too for folks who didn't know that's necessarily part of the process as well. Um, and for, students considering consulting, what does the work environment look like? What are the days like?
Yeah, so the work environment, I think at both of the large consultancies that I've worked at has been really fun, really collaborative. Oftentimes we're working in, as my office is right now, in kind of open concept spaces. Everyone's able to work collaboratively in teams. These days, especially after the pandemic, it's kind of more about remote work as well. A lot of organizations are open to flexible working styles. Like my company typically advises coming into the office maybe once or twice a week, but fully supports flexible remote working otherwise. It's a quick environment. Oftentimes you're juggling projects from several different clients at a time, and you're kind of there to fight fires and help out wherever you can, really. So it's quite a stimulating environment and kind of similar to the quarter system, I think, at Northwestern. It moves at a nice, refreshing pace so that you're kind of always stimulated with something new. If you're someone that likes to, um, yeah, kind of juggle different things or, be really stimulated and try to solve multiple problems and those types of things, then consulting would be an awesome fit for you. Yeah, and it consistently evolves, because there's so many different kind of trends or focus areas like sustainability. For me in technology consulting, technology is always on the move, and things like generative AI took everyone by storm, and we kind of adjust and evolve with that. So yeah, it's very evolutionary, super collaborative. Um, yeah, tends to be a really kind of enjoyable space to be in, I'd say.
Yeah, that's great. Really great to hear. And Annie, I have one more question for you before we pass it over
Yeah.
to Laura for some information. And students, I have gotten some questions already from students, which is awesome. I love that you all are so engaged. Once we finish asking Annie questions here, when Laura takes over, I would encourage students who have questions for Annie to send her some private chats. And you all can kind of ask those personal questions on the side as we're getting some more detailed information from NCA. So Annie, my last question for you is around your identity and how has your identity impacted your career path in consulting?
Yeah, for me, I identify as an Asian American woman. So for me in consulting, seeing more and more women in consulting leadership has been really encouraging, and I've been really fortunate to always have really great female mentors that I feel I can look up to in this space. In some areas of consulting, it can be a bit of a boys' club. So, from that perspective of my identity, I do feel really supported in that. And again, have been super, super fortunate that a lot of key managers and mentors in my life have been kind of successful women in consulting. So, that's been really great. For the Asian American component of my identity, I feel that I'm maybe kind of extra aware of certain sectors of diversity and things like that and their presence in consulting. And of course, depending on different areas of consulting, the diversity kind of makeup might be different. But for me, it was really important to kind of bring that part of my identity forward in my work. And so I joined a couple of groups within my organization. A lot of consultancies often have what's called employee resource groups for different kinds of folks who are interested or passionate or, identify with a certain identity. And I was able to join one of those and even help to kind of start my own while I was at Capgemini, all around kind of multicultural identities and things like that. So, yeah, just finding ways, I think, to express that, feel confident in myself, and bring it into my work and try and make a small positive difference in that space. That's been really rewarding for me. Yeah.
That's great. That's great to hear, Annie. Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for sharing so much about consulting and your work and skills that students should be looking out for. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Laura. Laura, I'll spotlight your video and we'll take some more information. And then again, students, if you have questions for Annie, you can send those in through the private chat. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Laura Drosty, and I'm a career advisor with Northwestern Career Advancement. And we're just going to share a couple of resources and ways that you can all get experience. We're focusing this presentation on like first and second years, but certainly like carrying into your third and fourth year. And as Annie mentioned, she actually discovered consulting in her senior year at a career fair. So there are many times that you can kind of enter different industries. Firstly, wanted to
Laura,
call.
so sorry. Just don't mean to interrupt you. I think we might be seeing a different screen.
Oh, hold on. Let me
Yeah.
reshare.
Thank you, Annie. I think we were seeing like your full notes, Laura.
The full notes. Okay.
Behind
Let
the
me,
scenes for our students.
If
thank you,
you,
Annie.
yeah, if you share it again, you just have to swap the, um, like view. There we go. It's
Let me
good now.
see. Oh, it's fine now?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go with it. Thank you, Annie, for calling that to
No
my
worries.
attention. I think it's because I'm working on two screens today, but yes. Wanted to call attention to our industry pages, which also define various industries for Northwestern students. So Annie did a great job of kind of capturing high level definition of the industry, but you can also go to this page, which I believe Maggie put into the chat, and we have other industries as well, but it provides kind of like a high level overview of what the industry is, as well as touches on those skills that Annie spoke about, online resources and key information and knowledge. On this page, we also have resources for case interviewing, which is specific to consulting. Another resource we have on our industry pages are four-year career plans. And so you can see here, this is for consulting, and we've kind of indicated the tasks that you could do per each year based on the career development model. So assessing yourself, getting to know yourself and your strengths and skills, exploring the consulting industry, making decisions, and then acting on those decisions. And so if you go to our industry page, you can see details there. Also, meeting with an advisor, we can walk you through this process as well. Another way to consider getting relevant experience is to join a student group. As Annie mentioned, the consulting industry has traditionally been, competitive, and so can some of these student groups. But NCA is here to support you in any application process or interview process for any of these groups. But it is a good way to kind of get that experience and be able to collaborate with students interested in consulting as well. But really kind of focusing on getting those leadership collaboration skills that Annie spoke about in any type of leadership role, can also help you build your experience. But given how popular Northwestern is, there are several student groups you could consider joining as well. And so what do first and second years do that are interested in pursuing consulting? So there are consulting internships, but those are usually typically for juniors. And so you could consider different ways of getting those skills, analytical skills, quantitative skills, teamwork skills, through different opportunities such as research. I love that Annie mentioned how she used her major in neuroscience and that scientific thinking in her interview process for pursuing consulting. So really there's so many different research experiences that you could pursue. Even within the social sciences and humanities or sciences where you're building those transferable skills. There are first and second year programs through some of the larger firms such as McKinsey that I'll touch on later. Sometimes smaller consulting firms will consider a younger student as an intern, but really kind of the summers after your first and second year can be flexible, and you really want to focus on gaining those transferable skills at the end of the day. So here are the hiring cycles trends. And so really that internship after your junior year is that key internship summer, and that recruitment can start as early as the spring of your sophomore year, and sometimes the spring of your first year if you're pursuing an identity-based program. Most of the recruitment does happen though in the early fall season, with offers coming out in the late fall. For full-time, again, it's the spring and summer, kind of leading into that senior year, and the offers might come up more in early fall, but be working closely with your NCA career advisor, and we can kind of walk you through this process. Sometimes first and second year opportunities will arise outside of the traditional recruitment cycles, and those can actually pop up even as early as now. So I'll mention to you later about how to sign up for our industry newsletter, but the consulting industry recruits pretty much year round for different programs and opportunities. So you always kind of want to be paying attention to the different firms and what they have posted. So I mentioned this before, but there's early identification programs, and so these are for students with specific identities, and they might be recruited for earlier in the first and second year. Sometimes these can be more short-term opportunities, conference-like educational sessions, and then students will receive invitations to interview after these programs. Also, case competitions where students can form teams or be put in a team to practice casing with the firms, and these programs typically are during the winter, so now would be a good time to look out for those, but those are some additional experiences you could seek out other than an internship. And then, of course, considering related occupations. So we know that consulting is very popular amongst Northwestern students, but there are a lot of similar occupations where you can use your problem-solving skills, work on a team, use your quantitative skills. And so we can kind of help you think about other options as well. And I love that Annie stumbled upon consulting at a career fair, and we have our winter career fair coming up at the end of the month. It is a virtual fair, just given how winters go in Evanston. I will say that most consulting employers will attend our fall career fair, as fall is that typical recruitment cycle, but we do have a few consulting firms attending our winter fair. And then to attend our fair, you can definitely also use it as a way just to explore your options and learn about different organizations and opportunities. You don't have to be interested in applying to an internship this year. You certainly can be, but also use it as a way of exploring. We have a pretty wide variety of industries represented at our winter fair, so you can check that out at Handshake. And then also wanted to call attention to our industry newsletters, and we really use these to give you the most, give you information on kind of opportunities that we think are the most kind of exciting for these different industries. Certainly, you always want to be checking Handshake yourself, but we try to also let you know about like the good opportunities that employers are hosting for you all. And the way that you can receive our industry newsletters is by indicating your interests on Handshake for industries that you're interested in. And so that is like when you complete your profile, making sure that you've kind of checked the box on everything that you're interested in. And I've listed out the different industries that we particularly cover. I know Handshake can send out a lot of emails, but if you ever see an email with a purple border at the top, that is written by someone at NCA, and that is directly from our office, so pay attention to those ones. And then lastly, just wanted to let you know about ways of making appointments with us. That's via Handshake. We do virtual, we do in person, we have drop-ins Monday through Friday from 12 till 2. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are virtual via live chat on Microsoft Teams, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are in person at NCA. But we hope that this just kind of sparked some interest in you, whether it is related to consulting, and that that is an industry you want to pursue, or maybe looking into other industries. We're here to support you every step of the way. So with that, I wanted to thank Annie again, and thank you, Cassie, for helping plan this 101 session. I know I learned a lot, and I always love hearing kind of stories from our alumni and how they came, to their careers, and think it was so great how Annie broke down everything for us on what consulting is.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks everyone for joining. As folks saw, I put some information in the chat tab about another alumni panel later this week before Summerfest. So you can join us to hear from more alumni, and then also grab a bite to eat before heading into Summerfest to learn more about different summer opportunities, extracurricular opportunities you might want to look out for. So thanks everyone for joining. And Annie, of course, thanks so much for sharing all this great info.
Of course. Thank you so much, NCA team. And for those who I'm kind of chatting with on the side that we might not have been able to finish our discussion, or I'm sorry if I didn't address some questions. You guys really raised some great ones. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I know Cassie typically kind of sends out that information as a follow-up. But yeah, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annie.
Stay warm.
Yeah.